coaches. They may very well be the greatest love-hate relationship there is. They push you to be your best and scream at you to not be your worst. As top athletes progress though, the coach's role does as well. At the NBA level, great coaches definitely know how to yell at players and get them fired up. But the all-time greats also have the distinct talent of managing egos and creating a winning culture. A team with mediocre talent could do much better than expected if they have a high-caliber coach leading the way. With a coach being such an important asset to the team, you can see why an organization would want to keep them around for a long time when they have confidence in them. But what if an organization didn't have confidence in their coach, or perhaps were looking for a switch-up to reorganize? And what if at the same time, another team in the league did have extreme confidence in that coach and would love nothing more than to have them in their locker room and on their sideline? If this was the same situation with an NBA player, the teams would make a deal and just trade him. So, can teams do the same thing and trade an NBA coach? This seems like a simple yes or no answer, but there's a lot more variance on the response depending on what you consider a trade. Let's take a look. The NBA just passed their trade deadline, where we saw players being traded left and right around the league. Some teams tried to improve their chances to make a championship run now, and some better prepared themselves for the future. Really prepared themselves for the future. The NBA has many rules and bylaws they have to adhere to when trading players, which we will have to make a video on a different day because there's a lot that goes into that. The NBA rules on trading coaches, though, is a completely different story. The issue with researching this subject is that it's pretty much all hearsay. We'll talk more about this in a minute, but in 2013, David Stern, the then NBA commissioner, blocked a potential trade between the LA Clippers and the Boston Celtics, with LA sending Deandre Jordan and a first-round pick for Doc Rivers and Kevin Garnett. On this block trade attempt, Stern said, quote, "The teams are aware that the collective bargaining agreement doesn't authorize trades involving coaches' contracts." He went on to say that teams pretty much can't trade a player for a coach. This makes some sense. Players' contracts are tied to the NBA salary cap, while coaches' contracts aren't, so you'd kind of be trading apples for oranges. The problem with what Stern said is, nowhere in the CBA does it talk about trading coaches. And hey, maybe Stern meant to say that it's against the rules because it's in the NBA Constitution and bylaws, which was kept private until Adam Silver took over. But nope. Not in there either. So where does this supposed rule come from? It is either just a cultural rule that was adopted by the old commissioner and many take it as still in place today, or it's in a private agreement the NBA has with the coaches. But this doesn't seem very likely, as the NBA has tried to be more transparent over the years. Regardless of where it came from, let's just say for the sake of the argument, there is a known rule in the NBA that you cannot trade a coach for a player. Another major part of this rule that we're just going to accept is a team can request compensation from another opposing team when one of their contract employees is hired by that team. A team can be allowed to do a technical coach trade for draft picks and cash. There is a very important caveat here though. The coach has to agree to the transaction in order for it to go through. A team can't just include a coach in trade talks and send them wherever they want. The coach has to give the team consent before they can include them in any trade packages. Everyone talks about the time in 2013 when Doc Rivers was traded to the Clippers from the Celtics. The problem is that he wasn't technically traded. The commissioner even said so himself. The Clippers and Celtics came to an agreement that they would release Doc from his contract for a first-round pick, and that Doc would transfer his contract over to the Clippers. All three parties needed to agree to this. That's probably why we don't see this that often. So many parts have to be perfectly aligned in order for this to make sense for all the parties involved. You very likely won't see a Brad Stevens traded for Eric Spoelstra headline in your lifetime. One, because Spo is probably in for life with the mob now and they would track him down if he left, but mostly because two, all of the stars in the sky would need to align. You would need two organizations who want to make a major change, who both have coaches who likely have multiple years left on their contract, and the contract would need to be around the same value, and both the coaches in the organizations would want to switch teams. Is it technically possible? Yes. Will it happen? Who knows? It hasn't happened yet, but sometimes you read a headline that a year ago you never thought you would see, but now makes perfect sense. So you can look at the answer to the question, can you trade an NBA coach, in two different ways. Either one, no. One team can only pay another team through cash or draft picks to release that coach from his contract and let the other team take over the contract. Or you can answer it the second way. Yes, one team is exchanging assets, cash or picks, for another asset, getting a coach released, which is a trade. The NBA could stand to provide a little bit more information on this subject, as much of it is up for interpretation by their fans. So to wrap it up, you definitely probably can kind of trade a coach. Sort of.